Today we have Gerard Longo.
Hi, everyone.
We started talking baseball right away because we're both baseball fucking nerds.
Yeah.
But it's been a minute since I've seen you, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. Congratulations on the new logo and
Thank you.
The new direction. I'm very intrigued and a little scared, but we're gonna.
Well, here's the thing, dude. Really, I haven't changed anything that I've said. I feel like I've been pretty consistent in my messaging since I've started.
Yeah.
I've always said the same shit. It's just now people are paying attention to it. And I don't think what I'm saying is very controversial at all.
No.
Because I think there's just a lot of people that are afraid to express what they feel about the music business because it might hurt them in their career.
Right.
Well, guess what? The industry already doesn't want to fuck with me.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I can really do. It's only a benefit for me to say, fuck you, you guys don't accept me anyways.
Yeah, the people so many of us have been afraid of offending are the very people that aren't giving us opportunities anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid to say it anymore either.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I personally have never really given a fuck. And I've always just said whatever it is I've thought or felt around a lot of this music industry bullshit. Because I like business. I like normal business.
Yeah.
But I don't like the music business. I feel like there's too many people in positions of power that are college educated, overeducated, and they have they're all failed artists for the most part. Like they wanted to be an artist at one point. They figured out they couldn't do it and that it was too hard, so their lateral move was getting in the business side of things. Which, okay, fair enough, but if they have a resentment and a fear of genuine and general artistry. The other thing is the music business always catches up to a trend too late. Look at music downloads. Napster.
Yep.
They could have got out in front of that and tried to do something with it, but by the time it was already happening, they were behind the curve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, too, another thing about the music business that I've come around to is that it doesn't actually teach you anything about business. It's so backwards how this industry runs, because the people that are responsible for there being an industry in the first place, the creators, get the smallest share of the pie. And it's been that way for as long as there's been a music industry, right? And so I'm at a point, because when I first came to town, I first got here at the end of 2018, really started digging in as 2019 began. And at first it was like, how do we get on the industry's radar? Oh, how do we please the industry? And over time I realized that is not the way to go. I came here because I thought that I needed to learn the industry, and that was true. But I needed to learn the industry to know which parts of it I want to break. Yeah. And now we're there. It's game on. We're doing it.
100%. I think they can fuck off, dude. Like the way I've always seen myself is there's the fucking sharks in the ocean. Okay, they're the shark. I'm the thing that lives on the bottom of the shark, eating the parasites off of it. I'm here to suck up all the resources, but I'm not here to participate in any other way than, like, because as far as musicians go, I love musicians and they love me. I have a great relationship with them.
Right.
There are definitely people that don't like me, for sure, because they're afraid, because they are trying to please the industry. The industry is just never gonna be friendly to me.
Right.
And until things are already moving, and by that point, you've made your decision, not made mine.
If you build your own community, you don't need the industry.
No.
And that's the fact of the matter. Like, before I went to South by, hosted a workshop just to give myself a practice run, honestly, in town before I went to South by Southwest. I did the same thing. And it was the same branding workshop, and I had this absolute troll of a human show up and show up halfway through the workshop, so missing the whole part about building from your own values, and pretty much sit there in front of everyone and, like, accuse me of, you're just trying to package these artists for the industry. I'm like, if you knew what I was about, let alone if you were here from the beginning of the workshop, you know that this is exactly what this isn't.
It's the antithesis of that.
Right, it's the antithesis, because what I'm doing is I'm teaching artists to build from a place of their own values, to build their own community, so they don't need all that. They don't need to sign their lives away. And the dude showed up, he was trying to prove something. I know him, I know what his motive was, it doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, like, I'm here to teach people to come from a place in themselves, right? To come from within and build that community. You build that community, you attract the right people to it, you attract the right energy to it. You don't need all that. You're never going to need the industry because you've built your own thing. It's sustainable, an ecosystem, an economy, right? And it's just, we have to continue to create that reality for ourselves as creatives. We are more in control than we think. We're more in control than the industry wants us to believe we are because we have more tools at our disposal than we ever have. What are you creating, though, that's going to set you apart? What are you creating that's going to connect with people?
Well, I feel like a lot of people, too, they try to make something that they think other people will like. Mm-hmm. And this is a mistake that creatives make, where I think it's a bad idea to just do something that you think is going to sell versus what is in you.
Right. Or am I trying to chase a trend? Am I just trying to, go viral, get some clout, have somebody, hand me an opportunity, right? And the thing is, when you have those moments, I mean, cool if you have the moment, but if you don't have something to back it up, if you don't have like something, a system underneath that, some way to capture the data, some way to continue that conversation with your audience, what goes up comes down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're just seeking that clout, that moment of clout, that viral moment, that trendy moment where everyone's talking about you, you better have something to keep that going. Look at Hawk Tuah Girl.
Yeah.
Look at what happened with her, right? She was completely unprepared for that moment. I'm sure didn't have anybody else around her, right, that was like teaching her business or teaching her what to do with it or even knew what to do with it. She gets into this crypto scam, right? And now she might go to jail, right? Because she was completely unprepared for that moment, completely overwhelmed by it, and then some bad actors got in, this is what I'm assuming anyway, and said, hey, we can put your name to this, you're going to make a lot of money, and look where she is now. Yeah,
well, it made her irrelevant because probably the good advice that someone gave her was go radio silent right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I think she could have kept that momentum going and spun it into something if it weren't for the fact of that crypto scam. Because I think, she probably made a lot of money off of that deal, but I think she's like a 22-year-old girl.
Yeah.
She doesn't know.
She didn't know what she was getting into.
Yeah. It just would have been like if you or I was in that position at that age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
completely taken advantage of it.
I probably would have been like, let's do it. I'm going to make millions of dollars. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel a lot of empathy for her.
Right.
Because I don't think she's bad in any way. I think she just got fucked.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was they basically rug pulled her on a crypto scam, and of course, they're not the ones that are being looked at from a public view.
Right.
To the average person, it's her.
Right.
Because it's her brand that's on it.
Right. I mean, she's 22 years old, naive to how all of this works, and somebody exploited that.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And that's the thing is, like, you've got to have not only your systems in place, you have to have the right people around you if you're shooting for a moment like that. Otherwise, you do run the risk of some kind of implosion like that.
Yeah. I want to believe that she can rally. I like the Hawk Tuah Girl. Like, there's a lot of people who hate her. I think she's just like a nice, pretty young girl who said something funny. Mm-hmm. I was surprised when it happened of how like viral of a moment that became.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked by that, but the other thing is like there was all these contradicting stories that were coming out saying that she was a teacher and she got fired and she did this and she did that, and none of it was true.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But again, dude, truth is perception.
Yeah.
What someone perceives to be true is what it is.
Yeah. Imagine being, just some girl on Broadway and all of a sudden you're thrust into the spotlight. Everyone's
you're just drinking with your friends, partying.
And now a week later, or less than that, everyone's spreading these rumors about you and like you're the talk of the internet, and a lot of it's not flattering. A lot of it's hearsay and rumors and all that. Like, what does that do to a person?
Yeah, well, I hope she's okay. Like I said, I really like the Hawk Tuah Girl. There's just so many haters in the world, dude.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the one thing I've been thinking about. I have a buddy who works in the media, and I was talking to him, and he was like, bro, people want to rip on me and shit on my job all the time because he says he's a glorified clickbait writer. Like, that's what he does.
Right.
But he's like, the reason that we do that is because it makes money because people click on it. They're interested in it.
Right.
It's something with human nature. So as much as we want to blame the media, which I don't get me wrong, I think they're pieces of shit for the most part. But it's people. They want the drama. They want the friction.
Right.
That's what gets headlines. If it bleeds, it leads.
And that's why I left journalism in the first place, because I didn't want to do that. You know, I remember there was I was working for a community paper. This was right out of college. This was like 2011. And I went to go interview this World War II vet. And he's like, you can ask me anything you want. I just don't want to talk about the POW camp. So I think I'm upholding journalistic integrity by respecting his wishes and not asking about the POW camp. So I get a call from my editor. Yeah, man, it's cool and all, but like we really need that POW stuff. That's going to allow us to run this on page 1 instead of page 6. I had to call this 90-year-old man back and ask him to tell me about the POW camp. And he then reiterated he didn't want to talk about it. And I'm like, I know, my hands are tied. Can you give me a quote? And he did. But it felt like such a dirty interaction because...
What did he say?
I don't even remember. This was 2011. This is
like
how
long that time
ago? A long time ago. Yeah. This is right out of college. And in that moment, I decided, like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to have to, like, you know, juice people for, you know, the things they don't want to talk about, for the controversial things that are going to sell. And as you get into the news media deeper and deeper and deeper, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, that was kind of my disillusionment, the beginning of my disillusionment with my original career path, right? And then, you know, about a year later, get an internal communications job at IBM. You start migrating over to the marketing world a little bit, end up starting my own podcast the next year, and here we are 12 years later, still kicking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it's linear, and in a lot of ways, I think life is not linear.
No, not at all, yeah.
It's chaos, and you have to decide what direction you're going to go.
Time is linear.
Yes.
Time is linear.
Yeah.
At least, you know, how we have constructed time in our society is linear. But the events that happen to us, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, are anything but.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's something that I think forging your own path, being in this industry, you know, taking your lumps and also, you know, sharing, you know, in success once in a while, like that's what it'll teach you is like you can be up here, but you've got to keep yourself there.
Yeah.
Or you're going to find yourself back down here. And that's the thing is like, how do you keep that momentum going? How do you keep yourself in, you know, a controlled frame for when things don't go right so you can course correct and get right back on track? Because that's what's always going to happen is life's going to throw you things. You know, it's going to throw you the unexpected. It's going to upset the boat once in a while. But if you're clear on your mission and what you're here to do, then that's the important thing. And that's what's going to light the dark hour. That's what's going to be your way forward.
Well, I feel the way forward is always just embracing the chaos. You know, I never once have felt like I want to quit or I want to do something else. Like this is still the plan, but you know, I went through a time last year where I got a good job and started living comfortably and wasn't doing the podcast really, you know, and I didn't really know what else to do with it. And I found this place, this wonderful place. Like I can't even believe that it's real.
Shout out to Kneecat.
Yeah. Shout out to Kneecat. You guys are fantastic. Sam, Eric, and Cameron. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now without this place.
Yeah.
It breathed an entirely new life into what it is that I'm doing. And the production quality just got upped massively, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing great. And I think, too, like, it speaks to the importance of having a team of people you can trust.
Yeah.
And a team of people who bring certain skills to the table that maybe we don't, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I'm finding out right now, too, with Underground Music Collective. Like, it's the first time that I've ever felt like we've got a really strong team with defined roles, you know? And I got so used, I think, to over, you know, a decade plus, like, trying to do everything myself. And, you know, I needed to get better at delegating. But also, like, I have people that I can delegate certain things to, and I know those things are going to get done, and it's a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah.
It gives me time to focus on the vision. It gives me time to go to the conferences and meet people and kind of set the table for us and then bring them in and show them what we're doing. And, yeah, I mean, there have definitely been times where, you know, you do feel like that, those roadblocks like that. Which direction am I going with this? Is there a direction that I'm going right now? And it's, you know, in those introductions to different people and their skills, it's introductions to, you know, how you can work together and, you know, the ways of, you know, the ways that team comes together. That honestly, you know, that gives you a spark, that ignites something that maybe on your own you couldn't have done, right? I don't know if what I just said made sense, but
it made sense. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, like I feel, even though I came in here and, you know, was talking about how tired I am, I feel very rejuvenated and very optimistic about what's happening. And it's because of the people around me. It's because of the team that I have. The fact that, okay, if I can't get to sending this email, I've got somebody to do that. If I can't get to editing this video, now I've got somebody to do that. You know, so it frees me up to do what I need to do, both for the business and for myself, you know, because that's the part that often gets so neglected is taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
And I am notoriously up and down with that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like there are times where I'm able to really like take a good pause, take a good breather. Every August I go up north and I do that for about a month and I come back here. But when I'm in Nashville, man, it's balls to the wall.
Yeah.
I forget to take time for myself. And then, you know, a couple nights in a row, passing out in your chair and you realize I should probably get some rest, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's easy when you have things to do to just keep chipping away at them. You know,
Yeah.
I think I really feel like that's one thing I've gotten good at, because it was basically last year, once I got like a job and I was making money, I was just watching baseball, dude.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing. I'm kind of jamming with a band. I have a new band, Canada Duck Feet. Show May 10th at the Springwater. This will be going up the week of, so Saturday night, come see us.
Make sure you're there.
Make sure you're there. It's the death of the music industry. It's a funeral for the music industry.
Oh, boy.
So come out and see us. It's going to be all jamming and vamping. No real set lists, anything like that. But I just knew that was what I was musically interested in right now.
Right.
You know, I'm going to follow whatever my artistic impulse is. There are times that you want to put together something that's well thought out and packaged. There are other times where I'm just kind of chilling and I'm playing and just doing my thing. You
Right.
know?
Yeah. And there's, I think, a time and a season for everything.
Yeah.
Right. There's a time to really like go forth with intention and like create something specific, bespoke to the moment, right? But we all need that time to pull back and play in the sandbox a little bit too, you know?
Yeah.
And
that's where I feel like I am right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm playing instrumental music. It's about the musicianship above all else. And that's where I want to be right now.
But you're also proceeding with a plan.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you can be in that creative space and still be moving towards something.
Yeah.
And I think where a lot of artists might get it wrong or get a little tripped up sometimes is, I just want to create right now. I just want to be an artist. It's like, okay, that's great. But you can, like, if you're saying that and you know, you're not focusing on the business, how are you going to expect that to grow and impact more people to where your artistry means something to more of them and is more impactful, right? Because so many artists, you know, come in thinking they want to take on the world and they want to have this giant impact. They want to play stadiums, right? But if you're just screwing around, if you're just creating, not to say creating is screwing around, but if you're just doing things aimlessly without some kind of structure behind you, then I mean, if all you want to do is create, then keep creating. Cool. But if you want to get to that level of impact and you want to play those stadiums, or even if not that, but like make a living off of touring, make a living off of your platform, however, so you don't have to work that day job, then you've got to be actively moving toward that in some way. And I think like there's this fine line between, you know, focusing on the creative process, which of course is important as artists, but also leaving enough time to at least understand the business part. At least understand it. So if you don't want to do those things, you can delegate those things to somebody else.
And it's somebody that you can trust.
Right.
Who understands what that vision is.
Yes, somebody you can trust. And I think too, like, as we go, like certainly as I've gone on the journey, like I don't just jump into working relationships with people anymore. I think last year was finally the death of that for me, honestly, because I did once or twice. And it didn't work out. It turned out that, the values and the vision just weren't aligned in those situations. And, I'm very much focused on like, okay, how are we progressing the thing? How are we staying on task? How are we hitting goals, right? And so the folks I want to work with, yes, brilliant creative minds, but who also are focused on, okay, how do we carry this momentum forward? How do we take it one step higher every time, right? And it takes time to really understand if you're operating from the same place, I think. It takes knowing someone for a long time to know, like, I should get into a business relationship with this person.
Well, you got to understand how someone's mind works.
Exactly.
And see what their moods are, their
Exactly.
highs and their lows. Because I think that you don't really know someone until you know them.
Yeah.
And I think for so long I've been very headstrong on continuing to do my own thing. And I've always, to take it back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, like, anti-industry, firstly. I don't want to be involved with it, and I want to be running my own pirate ship. A lot of people aren't into that idea. They don't like that very much.
Right.
They want to be industry darlings, and they want to be appreciated. But,
why do you think that is?
Like, why do I think people are like that?
Yeah. Why do you think they're so focused on pleasing the industry that, anything that speaks against it is like taboo to them?
I mean, my real answer is insecurity and stupidity, or not necessarily stupidity, but a lack of experience, like or a lack of self-awareness. Like, I knew right away from the things that I was talking about and expressing my opinion, it wasn't going to be liked or appreciated by the industry. So I just never even tried to go that route. Anytime I've gone against my gut and someone has come to me and they're like, hey, are you interested in doing this? And I've said yes, I always get mad and end up regretting it.
Yeah.
Like, there was a PR company that I was working with for a little while. And honestly, I really fucking hate PR people. I think they are, for the most part, the scum of the earth. I don't really like them at all.
I would disagree with that, but I'm interested to hear your take.
I think they are entirely about... I don't know how to properly describe what it is that I'm thinking about, other than the things that just make me mad. They are emergency, 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 help me out right now. And the first time that you're like, hey, can I get some help on this? It's always a no.
See, that has not been my experience at all.
Yeah.
Because we had a great PR company that we still work with out of Austin. And it's always felt very collaborative. It's always felt very mutually supportive. How can we help each other grow?
Well, I feel like too, yes, but it might also be my general attitude around the whole thing. Because right away, I'm very quick to say no to something. Like, no. I just don't want to do it. Like, everything that I do is coming from me in some way. Like, anything that's related to the Poptimist or any of my music, it's all coming from me.
Right.
There's not really, do I consult with people? Do I have friends that I talk to and get their opinion and advice? Yes. But it's like the other thing that I know about what it is that I'm doing. There's a lot of people that might like me, but they don't want to publicly support me because they're afraid.
Right.
And I don't take that personally.
Right.
I think it is. I don't think anything bad of that. I think that's just the lay of the land.
Yeah. Sometimes people feel like they're in a certain position where they have to look out for themselves
in
that way.
And for sure. And I totally respect that, honestly.
Yeah. But at the same time, good on you for not trying to be for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, the mistake that other people make. Like, I did an episode a couple weeks ago with Josh Norfleet where we broke down the archetypes, musical archetypes. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it or
My favorite is the succubus.
Yes.
And did you see my comment? I was there's a male counterpart called the incubus, and hopefully they get together and they just implode on each other.
Well, they do, because
yes, they do.
They get into couples and they call themselves power couples.
Man, I got a hot mic right now. I got to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. But I just talking about that. I mean, I thought that was That is just from my experience breaking down all those different personality types of what I've encountered. And the one that I really don't fucking like or fuck with at all is a politician. They're nice to you to your face. They're too afraid to speak out against you, even though they might not like you.
Right. And that's the thing is like, anytime somebody is being disingenuous, sooner or later it catches up to them. Sooner or later they get caught in the lie that they've either been telling you or telling the other person about you. Yeah. Right? And so it comes out in the wash. And I think that's the thing we need to keep in mind is like, as long as we're being honest with ourselves, as long as we're being honest with the people around us, with our communities, within our ecosystems, like, there's all kinds of bullshit that's going to happen around us, right? And there's all kind of people that will come in, saying one thing and doing another, being nice to your face and then going behind your back. People that'll make promises to the moon and then,
not deliver.
And ultimately, how we respond to that determines how much of an impact it has on us, right? Frame control. I've gotten really into this idea of just, in general, just across every area of my life, the person who controls the frame wins the game, right? People are going to, like, I gave you that workshop example before. And again, it was kind of loaded. And I know why the dude came in and did his thing. He was trying to disrupt me. I'll put it that way. And I could have done a lot of things in that moment while I'm standing there with a microphone leading a workshop. I could have gotten personal. I could have responded more pointedly. I just made the counterpoint. We moved on with the presentation. And then dude ran with his tail between his legs while his girlfriend came over and asked me to sign her book. Yeah. And it's like incubus, succubus. That's all I'm saying. I'm not naming names. But the thing is, like, okay, somebody comes in like that. Somebody comes into my workshop. Somebody is clearly there for an ulterior motive, and I know it. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be welcoming. I'm going to invite them to participate, actually meaningfully participate, because maybe they might learn something. And at the end of the day, I've done my job. I've done my job whether they wanted to receive it or not, whether they came up with honest and pure intentions or not. I'm still the guy up here teaching from the heart, teaching from what I've learned, sharing my experience to help others. And I'm doing it in a classy way that doesn't attack.
Well, I feel like it's the opposite for me. No one will ever confront me in person. They will never say shit to my face. Ever.
Why do you think that is?
I think musicians, for the most part, are pussies. They're afraid to really have any kind of confrontation whatsoever. For the most part, there are people that are like, yo, we need to fucking handle this or talk about this. Because not all confrontation is bad. But I think for the most part, musicians don't want to... Again, they're worried about their reputation. And I don't really care if I have a bad reputation or a good reputation. I think it is better to be feared than to be loved if you can't be both. So.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, like, how do you feel? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about
I feel great about myself.
Like, how do you feel about how you handle situations?
Because here's the other fucking thing. Like, if those same people who are afraid of confrontation, they would dog walk me if I just allowed them, if I was scared and didn't say what I wanted to say or express my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of bands in the scene and artists and people that I don't really fucking like, but they will never say shit to my face. I would respect them if they did. If they said, I don't like that you've said this, I don't like that you handle things this way, but they won't do it. They won't ever do it.
Right.
Not in a million years, because they're afraid.
Right.
And it's not even, I don't think of being afraid of me. Like, I just want to make that clear. I don't think it has anything to do with me. I think it has everything to do with their own perception and what they feel they can handle and not handle.
Right. And I think, too, by just communicating who you are and putting it out there, you're setting boundaries right off the bat. And that's such an important thing.
Well, there's plenty of musicians that I've known who, one in particular that really did try to take advantage, and was a scorekeeper. And he's been pretty much exiled now from the scene. But he was done with me probably about 6 months before everybody else was done with him. He cut me out completely. And at first, the first 24 hours, I was upset by it.
Yeah.
But he basically just, what he accused me of, he said I was a high school, locker room bully. And I thought that was funny. I'd never been really referred to that way before.
Yeah, that's not the vibe I get.
No. Well, but it was whenever he would try to do fuck shit, I would say something.
Right.
I would say something right away. Even I could tell his wheels were starting to turn.
Yeah.
And he was trying to work his angle. I would be like, hey, I know you're fucking thinking about XYZ right now. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm just going to let you know up front. And he didn't like that.
Right.
When I feel like a lot of other people, they were either blind to it or they just didn't want to have to deal with him. They would just let him do whatever he wants to shut him the fuck up.
Right.
But I'm not like that.
Right.
You know, I think too, it depends on how you were raised in the environment that you grew up in. I came from fire, dude. I was born in fire. A lot of these musicians, they are very entitled. They're very entitled, and there's a lot of ego involved, and maybe there is for myself as well. Like someone,
I think all
listening.
of us have an ego.
Yeah,
we all have an ego
for sure. And I can be very egotistical, absolutely, but I know I'm not a narcissist.
Right.
There's a clear difference between the two.
Well, because there's like a morality. You know, there's a morality behind what you do, and there's an ethos behind it. The difference between that and a narcissist is the narcissist doesn't have that sense of morality. The narcissist is thinking, how can I get what I want at the expense? I don't care if it's at the expense of somebody else. I don't care if somebody else gets hurt. I don't care if I put someone else down to lift myself up. But the other thing I notice, especially, as we become more aware as a culture of things like mental health and things like interpersonal dynamics, is that behavior is getting sniffed out more quickly, at least in my circles. If somebody's a narcissist and somebody's clearly displaying traits of being that kind of self-serving person who isn't concerned about other people, is only concerned about themselves, hit the bricks.
It takes a minute for people to catch up to it.
Right.
I think right away I can pretty much sniff it out.
And when you're among the first, you kind of have to pick your battles with it, right? Because you don't want to be the person that the narcissist then begins to target and try to make an example of.
You know what? I would honestly, I disagree with that.
Well, yeah.
I want to be the first person because I feel like it reveals someone like that. It reveals who they are. They can throw anything out at me. They can try and malign me.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I feel like I was really built to be in that position.
What about the distraction it could cause, though? See, that's for me. I don't want the distraction of somebody else's bullshit messing up my dynamic here. I don't want somebody else coming in and trying to throw stones at what I'm trying to do while I'm focusing on what I'm trying to do, because I don't want to have to give that person time to address them.
This is where I'm a flawed human being.
Okay.
Because I think I have a sense, for better or worse, of righteousness. Of okay, we're gonna do battle right now. Let's do it. I'm gonna win. You are gonna. If anybody wants to go toe to toe with me, no matter what it is, they want to start playing mind games, whatever it is, I'll fight to the death. I will die before I lose.
Okay. All right. I dig it. And there's something I admire about that too. And because we all want to fight sometimes. We and I don't necessarily mean in a physical sense, but we all want to, somebody comes in and tries to pee in our Wheaties, we want to pee in theirs back. You know what I mean? I think that's part of our human nature, and I think there's a certain time and a place where you do have to stand up.
Well, my true belief is that if someone comes after me and they sucker punch me, I'm going to hit them back with a bazooka.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to nuke them. I think that it sends a message as well. I think there's a lot of people who they want to be Big Dick Rambo, and they want to say that they're king shit, but I don't really think at the end of the day any of that shit really matters.
And also, if somebody's running around proclaiming that they're Chad Thundercock, they're probably not.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're probably the opposite of Chad Thundercock.
Yeah. And, I mean, the scene is the scene is the scene. I think that's the other thing that I've come around to. It really doesn't matter what you do and what you say. to a certain degree. I just try to treat people right, and to help people when I can, and I don't expect anything in return.
Right.
Because I think that's the other thing that happens a lot of times is people want something.
They give to get.
Yeah. And I don't really operate that way. I don't believe in it. I think if I can do something nice or if I can do something good for someone, because I can do it, I want to do it.
There's something to be said for being a good citizen.
Yeah.
Being a good citizen of the ecosystem, I think above all, like, that's what matters. And that's ultimately what's going to create the healthiest ecosystem for all of us.
Yeah.
Is if we're not, again, it comes down to, like, we all have egos, but how are we using that ego? Are we putting it to good, productive use? Are we using it to build something of impact that's going to make this all run a little better? Or are we pouring that ego right back into ourselves? And are we just trying to look for our own ends, regardless of how it affects anybody else? There is, like, we're all striving for something, but some of us, you know, have our egos in a place where it's like we're able to keep it in check enough to see the bigger picture and to see how our actions affect others. There are others who aren't, and maybe they get to that point one day. Maybe they never do. Some people never do. But what I'm interested in is finding the people who are using their egos, using their talents, using who they think they are to create something better for everyone, as opposed to just for themselves.
Did you ever watch the TV show The Boys?
No.
Okay, well, there's a character on it named Homelander.
Oh, Homelander.
Yeah. And he is, like, he will, quote-unquote, rescue someone, but kill 10 people in the process while doing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people, that's how they want to operate.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's... reminds me, I know Cody Rhodes, who's currently the WWE champion, he's always expressed interest in being like a Homelander type of champion where, like, I'm the good guy, but I'm really not. You know? And that's the thing, too, is we've seen a lot of that in Nashville as well, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Where, you know, people are presenting on the side of righteousness and we're here to help the community, but really, are they?
They're here to advance themselves.
Right. They're here to advance themselves or whatever bureaucratic mission is behind their community efforts.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing that, honestly, like, I don't want to participate in at all. I have no interest in something that's going to purport to be about the creative community, but is ultimately about funding the city government, for example, or funding entities in which the city government has interests. Yes, I'm talking about you, Music Census, because how are we saying that the parking is the number one issue that independent artists are concerned about in Nashville? I can think of loads more issues in this industry that are of greater concern to the creatives, but all it was a Trojan horse to be like, we need more parking options. We need more transit options. Here's our transit plan. Meanwhile, the independent artists are trying to figure out how to make careers out of their work, just like they've always been. The Music Census did nothing to help them, in my opinion. And
what is the Music Census?
You didn't hear this?
No, I'm not familiar with this at all.
So it was like the city and the chamber and, like, you know, a lot of the people we're talking about, although not by name, like coming together and saying, we're going to pull all the musicians and all the music industry people in Nashville and we're going to find out what their greatest concerns are and we're going to address those concerns. And essentially, it just resulted in this whole, like, the parking downtown is the number one concern among the creative class, and we're going to do something about that, and we're going to create more transportation options between our venues. How about we work on making this industry more fair and equitable for the artist and for the creative? How about we work on getting them their share of the pie? That's what would help. Not more parking and transportation options to get to downtown business districts.
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I was so disappointed when the results of that came out because we promoted that for them.
Yeah.
UMC promoted that for them as a partner. And then I see it, I'm like, that's the result? Are you kidding me? Like that, there's no way the musicians I know said, I'm so concerned about the parking downtown.
Well, I think there's a certain kind of musician that is their main concern.
Right.
Like when you're a Broadway musician, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I would agree that that's one of the other things, but, you know, I don't think they probably talked about the human trafficking in downtown Nashville at all.
No. Mm-mm. No.
how that's a pretty big issue.
Yeah.
If you're a woman and you're a performer downtown.
Right. Or even if we're just, keeping it to industry specific topics, right? Like, what about the way the majors are structured right now? What about Spotify? I mean, yeah, these are things we can't necessarily solve in a Nashville sense, but a lot of it runs through Nashville. How are we addressing the greater issues in the industry? Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Like the parking downtown, like, all right, cool. More people are able to get to your venues slightly more easily, although with the traffic out here, how much more easily, really? Until we have a train, that's going to be the case. How about we address the larger big picture issues that make this a more fair and equitable, safer place for artists, safer place for creatives, a place where they can come and they can create and be compensated for that creation fairly and equitably. How about we give them a seat at the table? That's what needs to happen.
So let's rewind for a second. What do you mean by fair and equitable?
Fair and equitable meaning there aren't so many terrible deals that these artists are enticed to sign. There's not so much gatekeeping, right?
Well, okay. So this is an area we disagree on, but I agree with you in the big scheme of things.
Okay, all right.
I think that at the end of the day, again, for myself, I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah.
I am never going to be part of the machine. Ever. It's never going to welcome me. It's never going to want me.
Right.
I'm never going to want it. I think teaching artists how to be an individual, their own thing is way more important than anything.
Yeah.
I think even if there was and I have friends where they've gotten offered major label deals. They told them to fuck off because the deals were bad.
Right.
I think people just, and we all do this, I think when we get to Nashville, you got stars in your eyes.
Right.
You think you're going to be the next big thing or you're trying to be the next big thing. But I don't think at the end of the day, it's reality to ever think that the industry is going to change. It's a juggernaut. It's always going to be a packing plant. That's all it's going to be in my opinion.
Yeah, the machine stays in business for the benefit of the machine.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm not naive to that. But what I guess I take issue with is like saying we're going to fix things and then doing nothing that's really going to fix things. And maybe the wrong answer is leaning on the people who benefit from the system being how it is to fix things. We shouldn't do that. We should be more self-reliant. We should rely on our communities and the people in them who are building from a place of shared values, who are interested in the rising tide raising all boats. And that's definitely something, at UMC we've leaned into is, building a community not only of artists, but the creatives who serve them as well. And how can we create these collaborations? How can we create this ecosystem, this network, not just in Nashville, but elsewhere? Because as an original artist especially, eventually you want to break out of your bubble. Even if your bubble's Nashville, you got to go out. You've got to branch out. You've got to plant seeds in other markets. And so that's what we're building with the Underdogs community right now is a way to, okay, the industry realistically, to your point, isn't going to change. It isn't going to become more fair and equitable. As much as people want to talk about it, very rarely, if ever, are they actually about it. So let's create our own.
Well, people just say it so they can be clapped for.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. I probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I had a guy come on who was a city council member. And he was really just bragging about the fact that he was able to shut down by the hour motels in Nashville to cut down on prostitution. And, at the time, I didn't really know how to bite back on something like that in a graceful way. And I was just like, that doesn't do anything to end prostitution. You're just making them either go to hotels down in Antioch or Airbnbs.
Flushing it out somewhere else.
Yeah, that's all it is. You're getting the feel goods and everybody's clapping for you, but you really haven't done jack shit. And I'm tired of people like that. He got voted out anyways.
Yeah, but it speaks to just the greater concept of if you don't address the systemic issue, then the symptoms of that issue will persist one way or another. They'll just show up in different forms.
People don't care about resolution. They only care about perceived resolution.
The appearance of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was a bunch of people who told him what a great job he did. you didn't do shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do shit to actually help these women that are being sex trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville has one of the highest rates of sex trafficking in the entire U.S. right now.
Of course.
Downtown.
All the tourism.
Yeah.
And, the stadium's about to be completed. Super Bowl's going to come here in a few years. The biggest sex trafficking event in the nation is the Super Bowl. That's a well-known fact. I'm not saying anything controversial there. What are we going to do to curb the core issue before then?
Well, it's, the other side of me, where I guess this is where I'm jaded, we're never going to solve something like that because there's always going to be a demand for it. We're never going to get rid of racism. It's always going to exist. We're never going to get rid of murder. We're never going to get rid of people being greedy.
Mm-hmm.
That's always going to exist. You just have to decide where you're going to make your stands at and where you feel morally comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people makes them feel better to just turn their head and look the other way versus say something.
Right. And ultimately it comes down to the values that you hold, right, and how you show up in the world.
Well, it goes back to...
It sets the tone.
Yeah, what kind of you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. It sets the tone. How are you showing up and how are you influencing your sphere so they can influence their spheres in such a way? You want to see change, it starts with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with watching the news and complaining about what's on the news. It doesn't start with, look, there's so much in American government going on right now that I don't agree with, and that is just completely just off the reservation to me.
Yeah.
Right? But what is standing around complaining about it going to do? What is posting about it on social media going to do?
Yeah.
I have a choice, and my choice is to show up as the person that I feel I should be, based on my own moral standing, a person who's inclusive, a person who, is embracing of all cultures, right? Like that's going to have way more influence coming from me than me going out posting on social media and fighting people on the other side, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all on the spinning space rock together. Right. And we've got to find a way to make that work. And recently, I don't feel like we've done a very good job of that in a lot of ways, especially here in America. But how do we do a better job of it? It starts with the individual. And I think a lot of people are feeling powerless because of the narratives in the media, because of what's going on in certain areas of government right now. And a lot of people perhaps haven't tapped into that power within themselves to create change where they are. But that's where change starts. It starts where you are. And over time, it has that impact as it influences more people, but it's got to start somewhere. And it doesn't start from taking this information from news source blue or news source red that's very biased and then regurgitating it on social media to turn half your friends list against you. No. How do you show up as a human being every day? How do you treat other people? How do you show respect to other people? And how do you do it over time, consistently? To where you are that person and you're always showing up as that person, because at the end of the day, that's what dictates the type of energy that comes into our lives, the type of energy that continues radiating out from our lives, and the type of impact, the type of change we're able to bring about on a human level.
Yeah. I always try to be, I think, optimistic when it comes to the individual, but I can be very negative overall about human nature.
Well, because it takes all sorts to make a world, and we're dealing with people who are on vastly different parts of their journeys, and some who don't even realize there's a journey to go on.
No.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of people who just don't want to change, who just don't want to see.
Well, change is scary, dude.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I am pretty empathetic to that now as I've aged and gained more of my own experience in life. I understand where people are coming from truly when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Or even people staying quiet when they feel like something is wrong. I get the perspective and I get why they just want to keep their heads down and live their own life. And I can't blame someone for that.
And I think we've all experienced that to a degree. So there is a level of empathy that needs to be had there. But ultimately, the quality of your life is going to come down to the discomfort you're willing to embrace.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we need individuals to take the power back in this industry.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we say take the power back, but really, has the traditional industry ever given the individual the power? The industry was created so there would be this construct for the businesses, you know, the labels, whatever, to take the lion's share.
Well,
right?
they're on their last legs.
Yeah,
and
they know it.
Yeah, and they know it.
Yeah,
and they know it. I would be surprised if, you know, we might be dead and gone. I think by the time our lives are coming to the end, like, the music industry might always exist in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But think about what Music Row was when you first moved here and what it is now,
mm-hmm.
dude. It is shrinking.
It is.
By the year. And everyone's like, oh, this is so bad. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great fucking thing.
Yeah, because it instills a sense of entrepreneurship into this whole thing, which we've needed the entire time.
Yeah.
As artists, as creatives, anybody building a thing, right, from zero, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I like to say artistpreneur, right?
Yeah.
If you prefer. You are building something that is not only a creative outlet, you're building an ecosystem around it, you're building a brand around it. And I think, like, you know, think about it like a decade ago where people would, like, cringe and gasp when you'd say your band is your brand. Well, now it's a commonplace understanding, right? And if you haven't adopted that understanding yet, you're lagging behind, right? And there is so much power in defining what that is for yourself and doing it from a place of your own values from the beginning. Because then, even though Music Row is shrinking, right, it still does have some influence, especially over these younger artists first coming to town, thinking all they've got to do is move to Nashville and somebody's going to whisk them away to a record deal, right?
If only.
If only. First of all, overnight success doesn't exist. It's a lesson in the book, 60-plus lessons from the creative journey, out now on Amazon and Ingram Spark.
By Gerard Longo.
Yeah, there we go. Had to throw that cheap plug in there. But also, like, in addition to overnight success not existing, why would you even want that right off the bat? Why wouldn't you want to get in and dig in and learn a bit about the business they're entering into? And granted, like, I have to also take this from the perspective of a 19-year-old who just came here, right? Who sees stars in their eyes. They grew up watching Taylor Swift, and I want to be the next Taylor Swift. Somebody throws a contract in front of you and says they're going to make you a star. If you don't have the right people around you to actually read through it, you're going to sign that thing.
Well, Hawk to it, dude. Taking it back to her.
Uh-huh.
She had something that was overnight success.
Uh-huh.
That's true overnight success.
Right. Overnight success in the sense that it was a viral moment.
Yeah.
But
she wasn't doing anything. She didn't have, like, a podcast.
Right.
She was just working a factory job.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a hater of that.
Right.
At all.
Right.
But she wasn't, like, in the creative or artistic space at all until that moment happened.
Yeah. But look at how unsustainable it was.
Yeah.
Because of the viral nature of it with nothing to back it up.
Yeah.
Oh, true overnight success doesn't exist. Flash in the pan overnight success? Sure.
Yeah.
And again, taking nothing away from her, again, we talked about this, she got taken advantage of. You know, she got a raw deal with the whole crypto thing, and she didn't know or have the people around her to know what she was getting herself into there. It's plain as day, right? But I wouldn't say that was overnight success. I would say that was a moment. Overnight success, as in sustained success, like you have that moment and it's happily ever after, it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. You know, you think about even like, you know, when I moved to town, like Lizzo was the next big thing in music, 2018, 2019. Everyone was talking about overnight success. She had a long road to get to those moments.
Well, didn't that Truth Hurts? That was like her big song.
Mm-hmm. And Good as Hell.
And Truth Hurts, I think that song existed for 2 or 3 years prior to that.
I think it was released in 2017, I want to say. 2016 or 2017. And that's the thing, too. Like, there's still life in your songs even after release. Like, you could still shop a song that's 2-3 years old and have a moment with it, right? But she had been building toward that moment for years, and she had been making a lot of sacrifices in the process of that. And, you know, this idea that, like, oh, she just popped up overnight. Well, yeah, in the, you know, mainstream purview, sure. But she had been going since, like 2010, trying to get to that place. And, you know, you talk 2018, 2019, that's almost a full decade later, right? So overnight success in the sense that, you know, from public awareness, yeah, but overnight success, as the cliche goes, is often 10 years in the making.
Yeah, or 20 years.
20 years. It could take your entire life to get to where you want to get to learn the lessons that you need to learn.
To prepare you.
Become the person you need to become to step into that.
Well, Lizzo, I mean, she fucking had people eat bananas out of strippers, prostitutes.
Yeah, there was that whole thing too. Yeah,
and she was also fat shaming her own singers or dancers rather.
After building this entire platform on body positivity.
Yeah.
I remember that. What was that? 2023, I want to say.
Yeah. So she's really been
pretty quiet since.
Yeah,
I think she just I think she was just on SNL, or maybe that was a rerun that I was catching somewhere. But I've started to hear her name kind of starting to populate certain spaces again. But that's the thing. You build this platform up, from a place of your own values, and then you go against those values, or maybe those weren't your values in the first place. Like that in itself can be something that'll get people who will never quite look at you the same way again. Right? Like, there are always going to be people who look at Lizzo like, oh, well, didn't you fat shame your own singers, Miss Body Positivity, right? That's always going to happen. Now, I believe that people can redeem themselves from those moments and learn from those moments. But, there's always going to be that part of that image that's, kind of tainted in certain people's eyes, And so...
Well, it's hypocrisy. I think that's one thing I can't rock and roll with.
Right. Yeah, the hypocrisy, and that's the thing, is, I look at Lizzo differently after that, because she's a great musician, phenomenal songs, and it's cool. There's representation, for, not the stereotypical pop star. I appreciated that, I really did.
But behind the scenes,
you hear what's going on, and it's it feels very hollow to have appreciated it.
Yeah.
And it takes time to get back from that. When a public figure flies in the face of your values, it takes a long time to recover, that parasocial relationship you once had with them, speaking from a fan perspective or just as an observer, right? And so there are a lot of people that are going to look at that moment for years. You think of the NFL, think of Michael Vick, in some people's eyes, will never redeem himself for the dogfighting ring, even though he's taken efforts to publicly display what he's learned from that. Some people will always remember him as the dogfighting guy. Tom Brady, in a much less severe sense, people will always remember him as the Deflategate quarterback, right? Never mind that he is the greatest of all time, and I hated the guy for 20 years as a Dolphins fan, but there's no argument against it.
Yeah.
I respect the hell out of Tom Brady now, because to do what he did, Deflategate or not, at such a high level for 2+ decades, unreal. We'll never see it again.
Well, in the time that he played, universally everybody knew Tom Brady is the best. And of course there were the Peyton Mannings and the fucking other people that were along for the ride that were, A-level quarterbacks, but for 20 years, it's Michael Jordan level. It's Derek Jeter.
LeBron. Which I would now make the argument that LeBron is past Jordan.
I don't know enough about basketball to be able to say that.
Just because of the longevity. Jordan retired 2 or 3 times. Twice. He retired after the 93 season and after the 98 season, and then the third time was the last time, right?
Yeah.
If he had played through that, he probably would.
Well, there's a bunch of rumors about, I think it was 98 the year that he became baseball player?
No, that was
93.
After the 93 retirement, because his dad had passed, and he kind of went through this thing where he wanted to go play baseball because of his dad.
Well, the rumor was that he got caught gambling.
Oh.
Have you ever heard about this?
No.
So the rumor, because Michael Jordan there's a bunch of people who will talk about it, that he's a degenerate gambler.
He's always been a gambler. That's a well-known and accepted fact.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was that he gambled on basketball, but I guess the NBA quietly went to him and they're like, hey, you need to step away for a little while.
So he was always going to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, and the baseball thing, he was probably just like, well, if I'm not going to be able to play basketball, I'll try baseball.
I'll go play for the Birmingham Barons.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think LeBron's been in the league since what, 2003?
Yeah.
2003.
We were kids.
Since he was out of high school, and he's still upwards of 20 points a game, and he's 40 years old. And he's been that good the entire time. No retirements, no breaks. And I take nothing away from Michael Jordan. I was a Bulls fan growing up during that era, during the 90s. But
how many championships has LeBron won, do you know?
I think 4, I want to say.
And Michael Jordan
won 6 and never lost in the finals.
Yeah.
But Michael Jordan also had another top 5 player in the league and Scottie Pippen right next to him for that entire run.
Yeah.
All the role players, you had Steve Kerr, you had Dennis Rodman, you had like this all-star cast, which to be fair, LeBron has had as well at certain points in his career.
Yeah, when he was with the Heat.
When he was with the Heat, and even, at certain points.
He's got Luka now, too.
He's got Luka now. Like, certain points throughout his career, he's had that all-star cast, but like, I'm focusing on the longevity and the fact to be that good at something for that long, to be that great at something for that long, like there's very little argument left against LeBron being the GOAT. Similar to Brady.
Well, it's interesting too because like Tom Brady forever he's going to be associated with the Patriots, even though he won with the Buccaneers as well. But it's like very rare, I think, now for a player to spend his entire career at one team.
Right.
You got like Aaron Judge is one that you can think of. Mike Trout, unfortunately.
For better or worse.
For better or worse, playing with the Angels.
That organization's a mess.
But like Ohtani, he's always going to be remembered as a Dodger.
Right.
Because he won a ring with them. And they're going to win more.
Yeah.
Like they're
unfortunately. I am so sick of the Dodgers.
Well,
I am so sick of the Dodgers.
You know what? I am and I am not. Obviously, I'm a Yankees fan, so the World Series was rather heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was rough. Your base running was atrocious.
Yeah. Even one of the announcers, he said the Yankees run the bases like drunks, and he was right.
Yeah.
But like Ohtani, he's going to be remembered as for sure as a Dodger. I mean, he's going to be remembered as an Angel as well. But it's going to kind of be like Babe Ruth with the Yankees.
Right.
It's like after 5 minutes into a conversation, it's like, oh, yeah, Babe Ruth played for the Red Sox first.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's going to be with Ohtani. I'm just grateful Ohtani is no longer in the American League. I don't even say that I want Aaron Judge to win MVP every single year, but it gives there's other people in the American League that I think fucking Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he has a shot at winning MVP. I think fucking Bobby Witt Jr., amazing player. There was a strong argument that he should have been the MVP last year. Judge still should have won, in my humble opinion, as a Yankees fan. But Bobby Witt Jr., he's going to have his day in the sun because there's going to be a time. Aaron Judge, I mean, how many more good seasons does he have left?
He's in his 30s already.
Yeah.
And he's a big dude. Big dudes don't age well.
They don't age well. Yeah. Well, we're seeing it with Giancarlo Stanton right now. He's always fucking injured. Made of glass, dude. Great player. Made of glass.
Yeah, great when he's healthy.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of the Dodgers because when are they going to be bad again? Like,
it's going to be a long time.
When was the last losing season they had? I think it was like 2005.
Yeah.
And, as a Cubs fan, they've been our final boss in the NL since 2017.
Yeah. So you're speaking from an NL team perspective.
And I'm speaking from getting throttled by them in our last NLCS like 14-1 in the clinching game, too.
Yeah.
So I still have a bit of a feud with the Dodgers. It was very nice to see us beat them, last week as of recording. But I'm just tired of them. I just want them to be bad. Just 1 year, like under 500. That's all I'm asking for.
It's not going to happen.
I know.
And the thing is, the Dodgers are right now what the Yankees were in the 90s and early 2000s. They basically are the same exact fucking thing.
They're a juggernaut.
They're going to win probably before Ohtani retires. They're probably going to win at least 3 or 4 more times.
Yep.
And like Juan Soto, he got this big ass contract from the Mets, and all of the different elevators that were on it, escalators, whatever they call them, for him to win. It's him winning NL MVP. Guess what? When you have fucking Ohtani in the league,
it's impossible.
It's impossible. No one is ever going to win. I would be surprised if, while Ohtani is still playing, if he doesn't win NL MVP every single year. But it's also, you would have to be injured and out for the season to give someone else a shot.
Like, there's always a possibility of injury. I mean, but
which I hope never happens because he is so fucking fun to watch, dude.
He is. He's absolutely like amazing for the game. We're watching Babe Ruth, our generation's Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
And there's already, even though he's still young in his career, there's no argument against like the greatness we're seeing. Better than Trout.
I agree. And
Trout, not to take anything away from Trout or Pujols or any of the recent greats, there's nobody who can touch Ohtani.
Yeah. I think Aaron Judge is a better hitter than Ohtani. But the fact that Ohtani also pitches.
Yeah.
And he does both things elite.
Yes. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's a video game.
Yeah.
It's a video game.
Yeah.
Speaking of Pujols, though, he doesn't get enough credit as an all-time great.
I agree with that.
And it's because after he went to L.A., he really dropped off.
He fell off hard.
But he was still really, really good. He was still better than 80% of the players in the league for his first half of his time in L.A.
Yeah.
But he doesn't he killed us for a decade, Pujols.
Yeah.
Every time we played the Cardinals, Albert Pujols was doing something terrible to the Cubs.
He's hard not to like now, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like even at the height of my Cardinals disrespect, I always respected Pujols. I feared Pujols more than I feared Barry Bonds.
That's how I felt about David Ortiz.
Mm-hmm.
Like now that he's retired and that rivalry is long past.
Yeah.
I love David Ortiz.
Yeah. Honestly, when Pujols went back to St. Louis that last season, I was hoping they'd win the World Series because the Cubs sure weren't. And I'm like, give Pujols one more ring.
Yeah.
And he was playing out of his mind for a 42-year-old like beer league guy. You know. Like,
You
know, he was. He was.
It was poetic.
Like
That's where he ended his career.
I
loved it, dude.
I loved it, and as a Cubs fan, I loved it. I thought it was amazing, and I wanted to see him like at least make a playoff run.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, he got that little playoff run when he rejoined with the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Once he got once he got DFA'd by the Angels, which dude, just fuck the Angels. Like they've wasted Mike Trout and they wasted Ohtani. Dude.
That organization is a disaster.
Yeah,
they've been a disaster. Like certain organizations in sports, you can tell why they don't win, and it's because of the way they run. It's a top-down thing. Like, organization might get lucky once in a while, like the Angels in 2002, but they've been a disaster of an organization. Think of the Cleveland Browns. The Jets, the New York Jets. They can't. There are certain organizations that just can't get out of their own way, and it starts at the top. It starts with the ownership.
Yeah.
Dolphins are the same way. I grew up a Dolphins fan.
Bad decision after bad decision.
Bad decision after bad decision. You know, Stephen Ross, was more concerned with having a bunch of celebrity owners and putting a nightclub in the stadium than fielding a winning football team. And then there was that whole thing a few years ago where he was trying to get Brian Flores to throw games, and it's like, I'm not rooting for a team like this. Switch to the Titans, and Titans are going through the rough patch right now, but it's a good organization.
Yeah.
I love the Titans.
What are your predictions? Who do you think is going to make the playoffs this year?
For MLB?
Yeah.
Dodgers.
Yeah, Dodgers are given. I feel like Mets will make it this year.
The Mets are definitely making the playoffs. I mean, the Phillies are always going to be there. I'm surprised to see the Braves.
They're on the struggle bus.
Off to that bad start, but I think they're going to recover. I don't know if it'll be enough in that division, though. Because also
it's a tough division.
You also have the Marlins looking decent.
Are the Marlins good this year?
They're okay.
Yeah.
They're not your typical Marlins, which, again, the bar's low.
They were horrible last year.
Yeah. Speaking of organizations that just need to move to Montreal already. But anyway.
White Sox?
The White Sox, I heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, that if they don't get their stadium in order, they might move here.
Really?
I don't know how true it is. It could have just been somebody just speculating.
Well, I know the Rays are also having their issues right now with their stadium.
And they were going to end up playing half their games in Montreal until they nixed that.
Yeah.
Move them to Montreal, move the White Sox, or better yet, move the A's here because they don't have a home right now.
Yeah. Well, A's are going to Vegas.
Yeah, but are they though? Because I wasn't that there's something about that was still up in the air, or
I don't know. I don't know what the latest drama or business happenings are with it. I've been loosely following it.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched at the end of last season all those games where they had Ricky Henderson come out and fucking all of the old timers come out.
Yeah,
and it's sad. Oakland A's. I feel like they've been. They're not Angels level. You know what I mean?
No.
They've had their times where they were the team.
Right. And where they were also even decent, even if they weren't, they were a playoff team, perennially a few years ago.
Yeah.
I remember.
Especially when we were kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even 2018, 2019, they were making the playoffs.
Well, they had fucking Matt Olson. They had Sean Murphy as their catcher.
Yeah.
And they're actually, I think the A's are doing pretty well right now. They have a couple of good young players again, but that's always what happens with them. They have a window, but they never win in that window.
Like the Pirates.
Yeah.
They're the Pirates of the American League.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
exactly what they are. Or the Royals,
if
you were. As for playoff predictions, though, so obviously the Dodgers, unfortunately. Mets, Phillies, I think the Cubs are a playoff team. I don't think...
Who else is good in the Central this year? Anybody?
The Central's kind of down, but I mean... I mean, you can't. There are teams you can't count out. I think the only team you could reasonably count out, honestly, is the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been struggling the past year or two, but like the Reds have Ellie, right? The Pirates have Skeens and some good young pieces, right?
Yep.
The Brewers, they're always hanging around. Whether or not they're good on paper, they always find a way, right?
Yeah.
But the Cubs are the best team in that division because we got Tucker. We're at a point where Seiya Suzuki's DHing because there's nowhere for him to go on the field, and he's a good player, right?
Yeah.
So we've got Tucker, we've got Swanson there as a leader, we've got. I mean, I really like Michael Busch at first, as much as I'm a Rizzo mark. Like, I love that we have our first baseman again.
Yeah.
You know, the pitching is incredible. Shoto, like I mentioned before, you know, I don't know if that made the episode or not, but like we've got a good team. And we've got Craig Counsell, who's a good manager behind it, right? Like the Cubs are here, and I think this is the start of another good run. I think it's the start of a window. Now, obviously, the Dodgers and the Padres and the Mets and the Phillies are very tough competition, and they're always going to be there.
Yep.
Right? But if we're a piece or two away, I think, from another championship. I really think that. I'm not quite sure where that piece fits yet, but we're a piece or two away. Maybe it's just the development of guys like PCA. Yeah. You know, and some of these younger guys, Shaw. Like, but we're going to be competitive all year long, I think. So, what are there, 6 teams now in the playoffs? Yeah. I couldn't remember
that wild card
That's
game.
Right. Like they've changed it so many times in the past decade, right? And then like 2020, we had that weird like 16 team bracket.
Yeah.
So we need one more team. I think it might be the Giants or the Braves.
The Giants are good this year.
Yeah, or the Braves surge. And I think there's only one coming out of the Central, and I think it's the Cubs.
Yeah. What about for AL?
For the AL, I mean, I think the Yankees are going to be there. I think Cleveland's always solid. The White Sox. No, just kidding. Not the White Sox. It's never. The Rays are always tough. You know, the Jays always have a shot. Like the American League, I think, is tougher to predict.
It is. Well, I feel like it's the flip flop of when we were kids because. The AL was the juggernaut.
Right.
Like they had the Red Sox, the Yankees. It's not really like that anymore. Like the Yankees are good this year. They lost Soto, of course, but they're still good.
Yeah.
And then Red Sox might have a chance. Baltimore, it's sad, dude. I want Baltimore to be a good team. But they had their heyday in the 90s, and I think maybe like 2010s they had a couple playoff runs.
But they've become another one of those organizations too. Like they grow these young players, and then the young players leave.
Yeah,
you know, and that's a shame because that used to not be the way it was in Baltimore when Ripken was there in the 90s. Like,
Mike
Mussina. You know, going further back, like Eddie Murray was there for a time, I think. Right, like the Orioles were like a signature organization in baseball, and in some ways they still are. I mean, Camden Yards is iconic, right?
Yeah,
but. Yeah, they haven't had like that good lengthy run in a long time.
Dude, I would love to see the Rockies get good, man.
Oh, man. But the entire NL West is feeding off of them right now.
Yeah.
Like they're just like the carcass. The rest of the division, like you have 4 good teams in that division. The Diamondbacks too, you can't sleep on.
Yeah.
And they were a problem for us a couple of years ago. They pretty much outright eliminated the Cubs from the playoffs. We lost like 6 or 7 of them in September. And that was the year they beat the Phillies in the playoffs. I got Philly fans back home, and I'm like, guys, watch out for Arizona. Oh, no, we got them. Do you? Because
that was the year they got to the World Series, right?
And then lost to Texas. But that Arizona team is a problem. They're a problem. They've got a lot of good pieces there, and they can make a run. You know, going back to the AL though, you know who else can make a run? Detroit.
I feel like Detroit is right on the verge of because they played well in the playoffs last year, and then once they hit the Yankees they had the experience.
Yeah.
But Glaber, he's on the Tigers now.
Yeah, and they second half of the year had that surge, and if they can keep that going and they can get guys like Baez right consistently, right? Baez is never going to be the El Mago he was with the Cubs. I don't think he's ever going to be an MVP candidate again.
Yeah.
I think he's past that point in his career, but he can contribute if he works on his plate discipline, you know, and stays healthy. Like he can be a 270 hitter, you know, who drives in some runs for you. He's still a great fielder. He's never lost that, right? You get guys like that, right? Glaber really comes on and stays on. Like, you've got this young nucleus of players in Detroit. Like, they've got the best shot they've had in a while at being something, you know? And then you got the Royals that have those pieces. That got guys like Witt, right? You've got, I don't know who's good in the West. Who's good in the West right now?
Well, I mean, I think the Astros are always going to be a threat.
Yeah.
You can never count them out, dude.
Yeah, they're annoying.
They are annoying.
Dodgers of the AL.
Yeah.
And
but you know what? They've really fallen off in some ways because they're
not the de facto anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Not like they were. Like, I think it's kind of back right now to being the Yankees again.
Yeah.
I think if the Yankees would have signed Soto, they would have been. It would have been the evil empire again.
Yeah. But it's the Yankees in a very weak American league comparatively.
I agree.
The NL is very strong.
It's stacked.
Yeah. Very strong NL.
Dude, I feel the people that were listening stopped because we've only been talking baseball. But, Gerard, where can people find you at?
UMCworldwide.com is our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. Join our Underdogs community. We're running a special for the first 100 members right now. We're connecting you to all the opportunities within the UMC ecosystem. The Quinn Spinn, 2 N's and Quinn, 2 N's and Spin. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on Instagram at Quinn Spinn Official. And we're rolling out new episodes every week. I took a little break to finish the book and get ready for South by. But we're back and we're rolling, and we got to get you on again too.
Fuck yeah, absolutely, dude. I would love to. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Keep on dreaming. See you next week.